In our next episode, we sit down with Glenn Wilson. We sit down with a Brooklyn native whose story is rooted in resilience, vision, and intentionality. This guest has the right level of assurance mixed with an energy that commands attention. And it's something about being in a room with a Brooklyn native that gives you additional swag. You'll hear his story of how survival and skill has led to success and a continuous theme of his desire to leave behind a legacy. From a young man finding purpose in the barbershop to becoming a sought-after barber to establishing a real estate portfolio and ultimately leaning into other business ventures, his path has always been more about a career. In this conversation, we'll talk about his upbringing, the role of mentorship, and what it means to create spaces that matter. More importantly, how faith, relationships, and intentional choices have all shaped his story. Be sure to tune into the next episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. Welcome to the studio, Glenn Wilson.
Thank you for having me.
So we do want to jump right into the questions,
Okay.
Glenn. I would love the audience to get a perspective of how your environment and family have shaped you. Take the audience back to your early years and provide some insight as to some of the events that have shaped your level of resilience.
Okay. I grew up in Brooklyn.
Yes.
To my father, he was from Costa Rica. Well, he is from Costa Rica. My mom, she's American. They got together back in the mid '70s. In '78, I was born.
Yeah.
I made my entry into the world, and that was like right before the crack epidemic. And mom, she fell victim to drugs, and my dad, he's a very non-confrontational man, and so I always, just understand his story a lot because he didn't want the smoke with mom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so he took the route of he took that route of hands off, and that kind of left me to figure life out.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. I spent a lot of time in the streets growing up, and the barbershop was the safe space. It was my refuge.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cherry was like the angel. We all have angels. Mr. Cherry was that for me, and he allowed me the safe space to kind of just be, while my friends was upstairs preparing for the next day. I was in the streets, and Mr. Cherry said, "No, you could come inside here," and that's where he kind of like instilled in me a lot of things that I carry with me today, like reading and just understanding, just listening more so than talking, and just a whole lot of qualities that I believe help me navigate life. And Mr. Cherry also, unbeknownst to myself, was teaching me how to be a barber.
Yeah.
Right. And so going back to my mom and her struggles, those struggles kind of left me without the resources to be fresh,
Yeah.
right? To be fresh and to have a haircut
Mhm.
and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of where I tapped into the skills that I was developing in the barbershop. I picked up the do-it-yourself kit,
Yeah.
and I practiced cutting myself, and that's where I figured out how to be a barber.
I guess in that understanding that Mr. Cherry is someone that you deem a mentor and you spent a lot of time in the barbershop, when did you realize that was something that you actually wanted to pursue early on?
So 7th grade, never forget William King. He was my classmate, my friend. This was probably the first time that I went to school after I cut my own hair.
Okay.
And I remember getting to class early in the morning, and William already there said, "Who cut your hair?"
Uh-huh.
And I was a little nervous
Yes.
because I wasn't sure why he was asking me who cut my hair. But right in that moment, he said, "It looks good."
Mm-hmm.
And that was my aha moment.
Yeah.
Right? That was when I recognized that I had something of value, that
Yeah.
that I had a skill.
Yeah.
Right? And from there, I just continued cutting my own hair, cutting friends, cutting family. And that's when I realized. But even in that, I don't think that I took it serious enough to actually pursue a career.
Okay.
It was when I was expecting my first son,
Okay.
Jarrell, uh, and this was 1995,
Mm-hmm.
1994, 95. And a friend, a family friend who knew my story, knew my mom's story.
Yeah.
She was a hairstylist, and she had a friend who owned another hair salon in the neighborhood. And because she knew that I was a neighborhood barber,
Mm.
she recommended that I go and work inside her friend's barbershop.
Nice.
And so I wasn't doing much with myself. I was outside every day,
Mm-hmm.
getting into trouble, doing the wrong things, and I was going to be a father in the next few months. And so she recommended that I get off the streets and go do something with myself. So that's what I did.
Wow. And so I want to stay on this path of, we've already hit on mentorship by way of Mr. Cherry, and then relationships by way of the woman who said, let me show you a different path.
Miss Juanita.
Miss Juanita. And I love that you're not only giving names, shout out to all the folks in which he's mentioned, but
That's right.
also timelines, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes when we're telling our story, we want to sort of truncate the timeline, when in reality, that's a part of your story as well. And a lot
Major.
of the factors that were happening around that area, I'm sure, shaped you.
Absolutely.
And so I want to double click rather into the barbershop career path. So you're starting out, this is something you want to do. When did it take off?
I want to say it took off when it was probably 1996.
Okay.
And I was home doing nothing. I had always, looked at barbershops, always submitted my desire to work in barbershops, given my name, given my number, and if there was any openings, someone would call me. I went to various shops around Brooklyn, but this particular shop that I had went to back in like '95, I believe, um, was Fixed Ins 2 in Canarsie, Brooklyn. Stephen Lindsay was the owner of the shop. Miss Barber, she was the manager of the shop, and
Okay.
so I gave her my number maybe a few years earlier. And one day I was home doing nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and she reached out. My phone rang. It was the flip phones, and I saw a number. I answered the call, and she asked if I would be willing to come to the barbershop and work for that day.
Okay.
So I did. I made $100 that day.
Okay.
This was back in '96.
You
You
said
could,
$100.
you,
I
you
thought I was
could,
supposed to get up.
you couldn't tell me I wasn't the guy. So I made $100 that day, and she invited me to come back the next day. I went back the next day, and I never looked back. So that was kind of when my career actually took shape,
Yes.
and it became more than just me as a leisure barber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that so when I framed the question, I was more so thinking around, when did you start engaging with celebrities? But you're like, no, when I made that check is when I love that. So I do, for the audience's perspective, want to give exposure to what it means to be a barber, a celebrity barber. What does that life look like?
It's rewarding.
Okay.
I think being a celebrity barber is something that a lot of people aspire to, especially in this craft. I think that there's a misconception that you yourself are a celebrity. I think that this path that we've chosen is service oriented.
Yeah.
It is not glamorous.
Yeah.
Right? And I caution people who get into it for that reason.
Yeah.
Because it's not essentially you are there to assist someone else's you know
Appearance, aesthetic. Yeah.
yeah, you're there to assist
Yeah.
essentially. And so it was great. It was great for the exposure. It was great for the relationships that I was able to garner and develop over the years.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm very appreciative for all of what it has done for my career for sure. But I prefer Main Street, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
that's like Wall Street.
Mhm.
I prefer Main Street. I like being in the community. I like everyday people. Just Miss Deborah.
Yeah.
Miss Deborah bringing her boys to the shop,
Yeah.
or Jerome with his
Yeah.
two kids. Like
Yeah.
I'm more into the consistency, right? Like so celebrity clientele is good for the check, is good for the exposure. But even with that, right, you're not able to really do your craft
Mm-hmm.
because it's so hurry up and wait,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you get there, you show up to set 7 a.m. Talent don't show up till 12, 1 o'clock if
Yeah.
they show up.
Yeah.
You know, you have to hurry up and get it done
Yeah.
while they on the phone handling their business,
Yeah.
and it's a lot. And
Yeah.
then it's net 30, 40. Like it's like
Oh, we love talking about money on this podcast. Explain to the people and I want you to look in the camera when you tell them net 30, 40, because people don't have
it's
an
like
appreciation for that, right?
for sure.
You're balancing a budget around when somebody else is paying you, and anytime you do a service, most people who are not aligned to the industry will think, "Oh, no, I'm gonna get my money at the end of the cut."
No,
Providing perspective.
no, no. If you get it,
Yeah.
if you get it, because then that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But again, there's intangibles. There
Yes.
are intangibles that go along with it. So it's not about the money. I mean, it is because we're working to get paid, right?
Yes.
But that net 30 is tough.
Yeah.
That net 30 is tough. Once and it's almost like you forget about it. And if you forget about it, they
They
could
are
forget about it.
too.
They could forget about
No
it.
one's tracking you
Yeah,
down.
no
to
one
pay
is
you.
no one is calling you to say, "Hey, I got a check for you." So, luckily I had some really good agents. I had Tammy Ford. She was one of my agents in New York. Ken Barboza was another one. So they were really good about making sure that I got paid. So
And that is an aspect. So I know from a creative, right, perspective that they have agents, but I didn't realize they have likely agents for every aspect of like them being the talent, right? And so how did you connect with those agents? Did they seek out you or did you seek out them? What did that look like?
so my life, I think we all have like a duality of how we live, right? So
Mhm.
I'm from Brooklyn, so
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time running around Brooklyn, New York,
Okay.
and in Manhattan, Queens. I spent a lot of time at parties, and so I remember going to a party, well, going to several parties. But Tammy Ford, she was a model that turned into a talent agency.
Mm.
She built a talent agency, and so I didn't know what that was. So
Yeah.
one day we were in Skate Key on a Monday night. Everybody know about Skate Key on Monday nights. If you don't,
This
check,
must be the 90s
yeah,
again.
this was the 90s. Yeah, yeah. 2000s, early 2000s. But I was at Skate Key. Tammy Ford, she rolled up on me on her skates and said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing now." Gave me a card.
Mhm.
On the card it said I represent uh groomers, hairstylists, photographers, nail techs, makeup artists. At the time, I didn't know I was a groomer.
Yeah.
I didn't know that term was me.
Yes.
And so I held this card, I sat it down on my kitchen table, and it sat there for a very long time, like a very long time. One day, something clicked. I don't know what it was, but
Okay.
something clicked, and I looked at the card differently, and I said, "Wait, I'm a groomer." Right? Like I said, I'm a groomer. And so I reached out to her immediately. I already had a relationship with her because I
Uh-huh.
used to be at all of her events. And I said, "Hey, you represent barbers,
Yeah,
right?" She
yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
So that was the connection. Uh, she invited me to her office. We sat, we talked, we we drew up a plan,
Yeah.
and from there, we built the portfolio,
Mhm.
and that was it. She sent me on my first job. It was with G Unit at Chelsea Piers,
Oh my goodness.
and that was
And you're
it.
talking early 2000s now.
Yeah, this is early 2000s.
So
This
that
is
was the
they
pinnacle
just
of
they
their
had
success.
they had just got on the scene. They were just heating up.
Yeah.
They had to cover a double XL. I think it was Young Buck. He had to cover the double XL, and I was the groomer.
Yeah. Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. We are going to fast forward a bit to, we're going to fast forward a couple of decades because I want to go back to COVID. I remember during our pre-call where you highlighted this was a time period in which perspective sort of shifted and you have relocated to Atlanta. And so I do want to provide perspective around how you shifted from being a groomer, barber, to getting into the restaurant industry.
So that happened very organically. When I moved to Atlanta, there were people who I had already known. So
Okay.
I like to say that all of my relationships stem from the barbershop,
Oh, nice.
like all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The significant ones at least. Obviously, now that I'm in new spaces, I meet new people,
Yes.
and so now I'm developing relationships
Yeah.
outside of that. But the barbershop was really my propeller. It was the thing that kind of moved me forward. But one of my partners. His name is Sim Walker. We knew each other from New York. We had a mutual friend who brought us together for an Anthony Weiner an Anthony Weiner event. And once we got to Atlanta, he moved to Atlanta I think a year prior, 2013. I got here in 2014.
Okay.
He wanted to open up a restaurant. His family is the brain behind the grill,
Oh, nice.
right?
Love Negril.
Negril. Shout out to Negril, Miss Marva. Shout out to they that's my partner's family's restaurant. So he grew up in the business.
Okay.
He was looking to do his own thing, and he tapped into his network, and I was one of the people who he reached out to. We sat down, we talked about the possibilities, and I jumped in.
Okay.
Right, both feet. I'm just like that. I'm a
Okay.
risk taker. So we jumped in, and then I brought in my one of my good friends, and we basically put that project together.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into the restaurant space.
Yeah.
It was simply just a phone call and me seeing the vision
Yeah.
and jumping on board.
And so I do want you to plug your current business, right?
Mhm.
So you're still in the restaurant
Yep.
business. Go ahead and provide the audience some insight around what you're doing now.
Yeah, so we opened up that business that I spoke of. It was Miss Icy's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Miss Icy's Kitchen, which was in North Decatur. We had a 7-year run. We decided to close the doors and serve that last meal back in February of this year.
Yeah.
And it was good. We did good. But 2 years in, we set our sights on apartment 4B,
Yes.
which is in Buckhead. And so we opened that back in 2020. That was during the pandemic,
Yes.
right? We actually built out the space late 2024. I mean, I'm sorry, late 2019. And then in February is when all hell broke loose
The shutdown.
and everything kind of just got shut down.
Yeah.
I was sick. I got hit with COVID and didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But once the shutdown happened, we all kind of took a step back. But then when Governor Kemp said it was cool to resume, we opened the doors, and that was it. And so apartment 4B, that's our restaurant, food and beverage restaurant in Buckhead. Also have a juice bar, which is
Mhm.
called More Life Juice Co., which is in Cascade Heights.
Yeah.
And so shout out to Trinket. We provide the best smoothies that you're ever gonna have, or that all plant based, everything natural. We pour our heart and soul into it. And then I also have my barbershop.
Yeah.
My barbershop, which is Groomsmen, Gentlemen's Refinery in Little Five Points.
Before us even engaging or interacting, when someone said, "Oh no, I know the owner of apartment 4B," I said, "Oh good. What list can I get on?" Feel like it's always you you have like a brunch special, and then I always dine late night. I feel like it's just such a good mix of the staff is welcoming and it's a good time, and it's a really sexy vibe. And in Atlanta, sometimes you're looking to get away from the hookah of it all. And so I appreciate you for keeping that space open and providing just a different aesthetic to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
Yeah, it was. So when we sat down and we talked about the vision, it was about so going back to Miss Icy's Kitchen. Miss
Yeah.
Icy's Kitchen is Grandma's house. So
Yeah.
that's Sim's grandmother's name. Her
Okay.
name is Iceland Walker.
Beautiful.
And so that was kind of like Grandma's house. So we pulled from what Grandma's house would feel like. So
Yes.
if you walked into Miss Icy's, you would see like the floral prints,
yeah.
the tile that looked kind of reminiscent of
Yeah.
old school, Grandma's house. And so apartment 4B was more of the idea of it being our place, right? So younger,
Yeah.
more swanky,
Yeah.
loft vibes, music, and so that's kind of how we built on that vision. And so hookah just was not part of the equation,
Good.
and no shade,
No
no
shade,
shade,
no
no
shade.
shade, because it is what it is. There's a place for everyone,
Correct.
but it just wasn't something we wanted. Something that we would feel comfortable at, and that's not what we about.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and just so you know, anytime I have folks coming in, we always say apartment 4B. Love it. Love the vibe.
That's dope.
So we talked about all of your other business ventures. I want to get into your real estate portfolio. how did you decide which opportunities to pursue as it relates to real estate?
So coming down to Atlanta, I'm of the mind that the South is cheap,
Okay.
essentially, right?
Mhm.
You know,
Cheaper.
well, my mindset was that this is cheap. Like, like I could live here
Yeah.
for this,
Yeah.
because you got to think living in New York, you could have. I had a 700 square foot
Yeah. Yeah.
apartment that was about $3,000 a month. It
Yeah.
was 700 square feet. It was smaller than this
Yeah.
room that we're
Yeah.
in, and it cost about 3 grand a month. And so when I came down to Atlanta, they offered me a loft with like 14-foot ceilings
Yeah.
and floor to
Yeah.
ceiling windows,
Yeah.
and for like $1,500. I said, let me have that, right? But I also knew that I didn't want to rent for a long time because
Mhm.
I knew that the opportunity was in purchasing real estate. And so for the first 13 months, I just canvassed the whole city of Atlanta,
Mm.
literally every single day. I woke up and drove around the city, just kind of learning the landscape.
Yeah.
First learning the 75/85, then learning the 20, then learning the 285, and just trying to figure out where I was positioned
Yeah.
geographically. And and then in that I met a lot of people because I'm just a people person.
Mm.
I'm gonna jump out on you if I see you doing something that piques my interest. I'm gonna jump out and say, "Hey, what's up? Like,
Yeah.
what you doing over there?"
Yeah.
And so I met this brother. His name is Greg Evans, and he's a real estate. He's a developer.
Oh, nice.
Him and his partner, they pretty much developed the majority of the old Fourth Ward,
Mm.
right? And they introduced me to another brother named Jordash Avery, who's an architect from FAMU. That's my guy.
Love that. Oh, shout out to FAMU.
Shout out to FAMU.
We are in studio. One of the owners
There
is
you
a
go.
FAMU
There you go.
alum.
There you go. So he introduced me to Jordash Avery, still my brother till this day.
Love that.
And so between the three of them and then my own ambitions,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I started to like understand the landscape of Atlanta and
Yeah.
and know what was on the horizon for the city. So before the new Mercedes-Benz Dome was
Mm.
built, like I kind of knew that area was on a rise. I knew Dan Cathy, owner of Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I knew that he, had poured a lot of money into that area. I just had insight,
Yes.
And so the first thing that I purchased was some land across the street from the Mercedes-Benz Dome. That was my first purchase. And so,
Yeah.
and then, I knew that Turner Field was getting ready to be sold.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had that insight. And so I
Mm.
bought some property over in Summer Hill, right? And I caught it for a steal
Yeah.
where now the equity in that is crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I just that's kind of how I made decisions
Mhm.
about real estate, just keeping my ears to the streets,
Yeah.
listening to what people had to say, and then striking when the iron was hot.
I mean, you did strike a couple of times, Glenn.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, and you were ready. And I think you're very casual in the way in which you tell your story, but there's not just insight that you're leaning into. You, I don't know that people often say this pointedly, but you're smart, and that's not just something that is. Maybe that's the energy that I keep picking up on, right? When you come into the room, you almost want to be really clear and intentional because you demand that. And I love that. And I think not many people have that, right? You can have a level of, sometimes you meet people and they lead with it, but that's not you. And I kept saying, I feel an energy about you. You're smart. And when you're
Thank
around
you.
really smart people, you kind of just want to listen. And so I'm even getting a little tongue tied up here because I'm listening to your story and I'm captivated. People always say, oh, I got lucky. Well, you recovered. And even when you came on set today, that was something that stood out to me where you were like, are we getting ready to start? And I was kind of like, yeah, we're getting ready to start. You're like, let's pray. And so how does spirituality, your relationship with God impact or drive where you are in your life?
Well, shout out to God.
Yeah,
Shout out to
hey,
God.
pause. Where is the applause?
Shout out to God, man. Without God, let me just give a quick story.
Yes.
Right. So when my mom was dealing with her demons, I thought that was the worst thing ever. Right? Holes in my sneakers, you know, friends laughing at me, you know, and then it's that mother-son relationship,
Yeah.
right? Like non-existent.
Yeah.
She was very abusive on every level. And so that spent me, quite honestly. Having to go into the bathroom, cut my own hair,
Yeah.
using a clipper that would get so hot that I would wrap a cold rag around it
Yeah.
in order to just be able to hold it.
Yeah.
That was in one of those things that just really took me and messed me up,
Yeah.
just for lack of better words. And but then something happened later in life when I started getting called by celebrities like Mobb Deep and like you name them.
Yeah.
Like people would just call me,
Yeah.
right? And now I'm in these rooms with people who, you know, other people would die to be in a room with, right?
Yeah.
And they calling me by my first name,
Yeah.
and they know me, and I have their numbers, and
Yeah.
and now I'm in a position where, you know, I'm able to create similar spaces for people who may also, you know, come from those same backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so what I realized is that God was always there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Yeah. Even in the midst of my storm, he was still there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think it's so true. And I don't think we've normalized that aspect of conversations often where you can, God is still present even through your struggles. And it's in your ability to sit here now, Glenn, and tell your story on the other side and do it in a way where you're still proud, right? You didn't get hardened by the experience where now you're not able to move forward. And that is a blessing in itself. And so without us knowing, right? This has connected us because it was and we didn't even get into this, but oftentimes people ask, what does it take to get on big moves, bigger conversations? It's people who not only have an interesting story, but the ability to tell their story in a way that will land with others. We have so much aesthetically pleasing conversations, and you don't necessarily always hear people's heart. And so I'm going to keep going back to the energy in the room. You have a beautiful heart. And
thank you.
I didn't just see it. My co-producer who knows you, my hairstylist, Shar, who said, I want you to get Glenn on the podcast.
That's my dog.
And even when I hadn't followed up initially, she said, hey, and she's New York too. She said, Sasha, you going to get on the phone? I said, of course I am. And so I am literally privileged to have you on today's episode, but I hope it resonates with the audience. Not just in this episode, but in every episode. I hope to bring on folks on the platform who have a similar level of integrity, ambition, and good people. Like, we don't see enough of the folks that are good because they rather be in the back. But you're the talent we want to see, Glenn. And so
thank you.
I don't want to move too far past the story that you were sharing, because another thing that I think is so insightful is in your barbershop where you look to create spaces for young men to read.
Yeah.
I think that is exceptional, and I would like you to just sort of share some more insight onto that, as to that.
So it's cuts and chapters, right? Like, so that's the book club that I created, and a lot of it has to do with the way that I was groomed.
Yes.
Mr. Cherry, he would shove a newspaper in my lap, like, read.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna just sit here and listen to this conversation that's taking place. Read something and then tell me what you read.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how that was helping me.
Yeah.
I didn't know, because I don't have formal education. I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
I didn't even graduate from high school. I got my GED, right? And so but you would not know that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with how the angels,
Yeah.
just swarmed around me and really made sure that was good. So when it was my turn to create spaces,
Yes.
I was intentional about the aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
and then also the offering.
Yes.
So, and it wasn't just about cutting hair; it was also about putting a bookshelf. So inside the groomsmen is a bookshelf,
Yeah.
and it's because I want people to come into the space and one have a piece of who I am, right?
Yes.
But also to just jog their minds and say, hey, I can read, like,
Yes.
or what is that, right?
Yeah.
So even on coming in here, I didn't know how fast we would get
Yeah.
started, but
Yeah.
I'm going and grabbing my book.
You did.
Like that's where the information is. And so, so that's what it really it all boils down to. It's just a matter of, just paying things forward,
Yeah.
being the change you want to see.
Yeah.
Listening to the rhetoric around black men not reading
Yeah.
and
Dispelling it all.
and trying to be the dispelling factor for sure.
I love that. And women, I always say this, but like women organically can create community around anything. We've created it around travel. We've created it around books. And so to see that you're tapping into that or providing space rather, right? Because it's there. Maybe now it's just being talked about, which I love. And so keep doing it. When I have a nephew here in the area, we're going to bring him by the bookshelf and tell him to read. His mama is a teacher, so she's always having him read. But again, that exposure of seeing other men do something is always pivotal in the upbringing of others.
Right.
And so, listen, I didn't know the time was going to go so fast, but we're wrapping up. The studio is saying we're wrapping up. I want to give you an opportunity to provide what we like to call a call to action. So for someone who's still in their own survival season, what's your message for them? As a man centered, leaning into his family, friends, and community, what do you want to see more of?
I would like to see more men in church,
Yeah.
connecting with their source.
Yeah.
I would like to see more men, just being intentional about their overall well-being.
Yeah.
Going to the doctor.
Yeah.
We losing a lot of brothers over things that we don't have to lose them over. I would like to see more men intentional about bringing their sons to the barbershop. All too often is single mothers bringing their kids to the barbershop. I would like to see more brothers developing more social circles and being intentional around just camaraderie, just
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
I'm a part of a brotherhood called Undugu. Shout out to Jamel and Mario. And they do exactly that. We foster brotherhood. And so I just want to see more brothers just being vulnerable, being able to be expressive, talk about what's truly affecting us because we're human.
Yeah.
And on the most basic level, we all have similar experiences. And so, that's what I would say. Just be more intentional about your overall well-being.
Love that. And you gave a couple of call to actions. And so, guys, to stay connected to Glenn, all things Glenn, do you have any socials?
Yeah, G the Barber on all platforms.
Stop by the
That's about it.
barbershop.
Yeah, groomsmen, apartment 4B, more life. Play the tape back.
Yeah. And be sure to say, hey, I saw you on Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. Loved the conversation. And for anyone that's watching, leave comments, right? Like, we love to see the engagement. If there's other things that you want to talk about and or hit on, like, let us know. We're happy to bring Glenn back in the studio. And so with that, I say thank you for tuning in to another episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. Glenn, I want to embrace.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.